Hey everyone, Steve the Hurricane here, and I am just super excited for today's webinar. I'm honored to be able to speak with you. I'm honored to be able to be sharing some of the insights on scaling and growing your organization and what's going to happen in 2024. It's there's a lot of uncertainty, and this is one of my favorite webinars to do. We have so many great things planned for you. We have some free gifts and giveaways for people who are live, and I'm loving to see it. I'm seeing all these people populate over here. So just real quick, before I introduce my co-host with me here, I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. All right. So if you can hear me in your GoToWebinar panel, all right, it should be on the right side of your screen. Just where see where it says questions? If everybody could just type yes, if you could hear me where it says questions, that would be great. Just to make sure everyone can hear us. I always like to do a quick test there. Okay, good. Wow, there you go. There you go. There's all the yeses. So if anybody is like, I can't hear anything, the issue is on your end. So, but this is exciting. I'm so glad to be here. We're going to rock this out. And so, let me go ahead and introduce you to my co-host here, Mr. Julio Barrera, as he is just, a rock star in this industry. I had the privilege of meeting Julio at my boot camp last November in San Antonio, Texas. And we just hit it off we come from the same school of thought. We're both hustlers. We work hard. We also play hard. We know a lot about the insights. We've been working with so many home care agency owners in different parts of the industry. Mine is more scaling and more consulting. His is more on the technology and the support side of things. But it's just it's a beautiful marriage that we have going here in our partnership. And so, Julio, you want to say hi to everybody?
Yeah, hi everyone. It's very nice to meet you folks. Julio Barea here. And I got to say, I'm super excited to be here with Steve. This is our first opportunity to share what I think personally is really powerful content that can help both our clients and Steve's clients grow their businesses, improve their efficiency, grow their operations, and really in the end, improve the outcomes for your clients, because that's really what we're here to do. And while at the same time, create what we think should be a positive environment for your staff. And frankly, Steve, watching you and your staff and how you guys mentor these folks in your group and the empathy that you show in the business is absolutely fantastic to see. So I couldn't be happier to be invited to share with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, it's fantastic. And so for everyone here right now, you're live with us. And something that we're really excited about is that we have some free gifts that we're going to raffle off at the very end of the webinar. So I'm going to be raffling off $1,000 free gift for one lucky person at the end of the webinar here. So make sure that you stay tuned with us the whole time so I can be sure to raffle that off. And one lucky person is going to win it. And then I hear, Julio, you got a free gift too, huh?
I got a laptop. We are giving away a brand new Chromebook to some lucky person on this event today. Couldn't be happier to do so.
I love it. So 2 free gifts for being on live with us here. So also, as we're all filtering in here with these free gifts, we also have a huge announcement that we're going to be sharing with you right now, which I'm just so excited about here. And so as Julio had mentioned, he saw all the empathy with all the people in the room. And I was talking about how I met Julio at the boot camp last year. And so we are officially announcing the next Home Care Evolution Boot Camp is going to be this May 15th, 16th, and 17th. May 15th, 16th, and 17th. It's going to be in Baltimore, Maryland, right on the waterfront at a beautiful Westin hotel. We are super excited for you. See all these happy people here in this picture. I know, Julio, you're like in the back over here somewhere by like the door area. That's where you are right there. And obviously everybody knows this is yours truly here. But, we had almost 200 people at the, there you go, Julio. I see it right there. That's you. So,
yeah, right.
Julio's there. But I was excited. We had almost 200 people at this event. We are guaranteeing to have 200 people at the next event. It's an even bigger space. The location is perfect. You fly into the airport, go right to the hotel. And again, it's beautiful right there on the waterfront. It doesn't get any nicer than that. So we're excited to have you there. Right now, we have early bird tickets on our website. These are some of our speakers. There's more speakers that are going to be announced. Many of you have probably heard about Nick Bonatadovich, the owner of Digital Champs. Many of you have heard expert, Jeremy Fuller, who's the owner of Grow Home Care Marketing and his website design. Many of you have heard, obviously, we have Julio right here and other great speakers as well. Plus, there's more to come. So it's going to be fantastic. Make sure you go to our website, homecareevolution.com/bootcamp, and register today because the early bird prices, you save $300 on the full price. So it's significantly reduced right now. This is your best chance to save and get everything you need to be able to scale and grow your business to the next level and beyond. So without further ado, Julio, let's jump into this. So why don't we go ahead and let's get started, my friend. How's that sound? Good?
Sure, yeah. Well, you want to talk about, let's talk about what's happening in 2024. I think, look, it's the beginning of the year. This is a perfect time to talk about it. It's a topic that I know it's near and dear to my heart, to my clients, to my family, to my friends, to you, is the state of the economy. And what do we see happening in this economy that's going to have an impact on the people that work for us and the people that we work with together and to help. And so I know for us and our company, we watch these things closely. We take into account, we like to look at macroeconomic conditions to kind of get an idea. Not that any of us are prophets in the day of trying to figure out what's going to happen next, but we do try to keep an eye on that. And the things that affect our clients are things like elections this year. Steve, you and I talked about this earlier today. The actual economy itself, the stock market is happening. Job numbers, hugely important when we're talking about things like caregivers. And of course, there's constant regulation changes. In our space where we're playing with Medicaid and the rules are different in every state, you have to stay on top of those things too. So I think what I'd love to know, Steve, and I think one of the big things I came here today is learn is, what do you see coming for the next year, and how do you think that's going to have an impact on the people that we're helping?
Yeah, and I agree with you, Julio. It's something that I'll share like three different parts here. Like the first thing I'll share with you is, what is the economy? Because the economy, I feel, is it's so subjective, right? Because it depends on who you ask how the economy is. So I'm actually going to reference back to one of my really good friends who's very, very high up VP level status at Merrill Lynch. And he always talks to me about whenever the economy from a stock market standpoint has a record year. Last year was a record year, 2023. The stock market is higher than it's ever been. So he says that when 1 year is the highest it's ever been, the next year is not, it doesn't crash. It doesn't just come to a halt and stop. Usually, if 1 year is a record year, the next year is a little bit less than that year, but there's usually a year of leveling off. And this is with 150 plus years of data collected that he had shared this information to me. So from an investment standpoint, from a stock market standpoint, from retirement funding and all of that good stuff, it should be a good year from that perspective. Then you have what I call the tale of two economies. You have people like us who are business owners, entrepreneurs, people who are successful. Travel is at an all-time high. The cost of goods is at an all-time high. People are staying at hotels. Restaurants are full. Everywhere you go. Like I'm actually leaving after we're done here. I'm going to a wine tasting. That event was sold out. It's $450 a person to go to that event, right? I didn't tell you that, Julio, right? But that's how much it costs to go to that event. And it's sold out, right? So what does that tell you? It tells you that people who have resources are spending it. But then you have the other side of it. You have the people who don't have the resources. You have the people who are not making the income, and they're the ones that are struggling. Even our own caregivers, the people that we employ, when you think about the income that the caregivers are making, whether you think it's enough or it's too much or it's not enough, whatever it is, it's irrelevant. It's not enough, for some of the things that we consider basic in our household. I consider making sure that I have internet. Every one of my children has a tablet or a cell phone. We have multiple TVs in our house and all this other great stuff or whatever. That's me and my family and my household, but not everybody has that kind of stuff. And so it's almost like, depending on who you ask, some the economy is really strong and good, and some the economy is not so strong and good. Something that I also want to throw out there too, Julio, as we're talking, one of my buddies who works for a mortgage company, and I was talking with him about interest rates and stuff. This being an election year, I can almost guarantee, and it's not, I'm not pro Biden, I'm not pro Trump, I'm not pro anything. I'm just speaking. Whoever's in office, they always adjust the interest rates. They always want to make things look better than it is or make things look good because they want to get reelected. So we're all expecting, and it's already started to happen, that interest rates will slowly go down. Now, will they go down to the pre-pandemic levels? Probably not, but they're slowly creeping down, and I expect that trend to continue throughout the rest of this year, November, December timeframe. That's my take on what the state of the economy is. That's my take on the forecast for things financial in 2024.
I really enjoy that positive outlook, because a lot of times we see, when you're watching pundits on TV, you get a lot of different opinions of how the economy is doing. Some think the economy is doing fantastic. Some think the economy is doing so good. I do know that every single point you made about a positive economy is absolutely true. And the fact that it does have two disparate impacts on different populations is an interesting point. What would you suggest a home care agency could do proactively to help mitigate some of the things that may or may not happen this year from an economic standpoint? And how can they help all of their people participate in some of those benefits?
So the first thing I would do to mitigate things is always just be careful with your finances and your spending. Now, I'm not saying that you don't want to spend money, because you should spend money. I'm not saying you shouldn't take out a loan or a line of credit or any of that. You should always have those things. Those things are what I consider an umbrella. I remember when I first started my company way back in 2012, and I didn't get a line of credit immediately. I got a line of credit about 18 months after starting the business. I wanted to make sure things were well. I had a nice nest egg of resources from the previous company that I had owned that we had sold, so I didn't need to tap into it. But I opened up my first line of credit in 2014 for this business, Hurricane Marketing Enterprises, Home Care Evolution. And when I went to open it, the guy at the bank said to me, "What are you going to use this for?" And I had said to him, "I'm not going to use it at all, or the hope is to never have to use it, but I'd rather have it so that if I need to cover payroll, if there's something unforeseen that comes up, I can always have access to resources to help me weather a storm." And the gentleman told me, he goes, "Oh, you're the kind of guy that goes to Manhattan and you're carrying an umbrella when it's sunny outside." And I said, "You know what? I am that person, right?" And so my advice to everybody on here, and from one entrepreneur to another, and I'll share with you, I mean, Julio, last week, Julio, I spent the entire week, I was suffering in the island nation of Bermuda. Yes, it was such a, I was so labor. I was at a beautiful 5-star resort in Bermuda with the members of my Home Care Elite Academy, and there was 24 business owners in the room, and we were all talking about the finances from last year and how everybody's business was last year and moving into this year and planning ahead of time, and all of the things that I'm sharing with you now on the table. And we were discussing last week for 2 days straight before we went out and enjoyed the island, and we were talking about making sure we have the line of credit, making sure that there's resources, making sure that we're spending smartly. If we're going to take an investment in something, make sure it's a calculated risk, making sure that we're thoroughly vetting things out before we spend. So spend money. Yes, it takes money to make money. Just don't be careless with it. And one last thing, and you mentioned it, Julio, at the beginning here when you and I were talking before we jumped on, about at the boot camp, Captain Joseph Couture, who spoke, and he was talking about this whole risk assessment. And with everything, he always says when it comes to doing a calculated risk, you want to look at first, how much information, how much knowledge do I have about the subject, right? So in this case here, if I'm going to do financing, if I'm going to save or whatever, how much do I know about financing? And then the next thing you want to do is look at how much control do I have over it, right? So if I know a lot about something and I have a lot of control over it, move forward in confidence because that's low risk. If I don't know a lot about it and I have no control over it or very little control over it, that's a high risk. Maybe don't move forward with it.
I think it's important when people are working with the organizations they're working with to get them through the year. And I think you said something important, because you keep referring back to the people that you work with, the business owners that you're running through your program. And I think having the right collaborators in your business is more important than anything else. I think the successful people that work with us they look to us as a technology partner that can help them through the things that we're good at, right? We're not good at everything. We do some things really well, but the things that we do well, we really stand by the advice and the content and the help that we provide to people that we work with. And I see that you do the same thing. I think too many business owners try to do it by themselves. And
Right.
instead of thinking that we all have a unique set of skills and you should just lean into the people that do those things really well. Some things I do things pretty well, but other things that I don't, there are people smarter and more experienced than me. And those are the people I look to in that experience. So if you would ask somebody and said, what's the one decision you can make this year to help position yourself to be better, what would that be?
Hands down, no question, get a consultant to look at your business, that outside eye. When I look at this, again, I'll mention the clients last week at the Home Care Elite Academy, and you see people on the cover of the magazines that I put out and whatnot. When I looked at all the people in the room last week, the average business owner in the room was doing about $6 million in revenue. And it's 2022, a year before, those people doing 6 million on average were doing like 4 million, $3.8 million, right? So you're talking about a 50% revenue growth from what they did the year before. That's staggering. $2 million more than you did the year before. That's staggering growth. How did they do that? They brought in consultants. They brought in experts. There was one person in the room who grew their business by $20 million more than what they did last year. 20, right? And what was exciting about that particular person is they said that they don't just have one coach, they have like 4 business coaches. They have a business coach for home care, they got a finance coach, they got a personal coach, they got a spiritual coach for all of these different aspects of their life. And because of it, they're fully optimized. They're making the most of every opportunity that comes their way. They know when to say no because they can bounce ideas off of their coaches and their consultants, and it's helped them to be able to grow their business tremendously. So that would be my advice. Bring in outside support from outside the organization, because in the business, this business is easily the kind of business that can run you. So instead of you getting run by your business, the outside eye looking in can say, whoa, 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 Julio, hold on a second. Do you see this? Look at this. Check this out. And then all of a sudden that whoa, 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 check this out. That could be a $500,000 revenue jump. That could be $1 million in additional revenue that you generate because someone was able to see something that you weren't able to because you're running your business and the business is so high paced and high speed. So that's my advice.
Great advice, and something that I can say that inside the clients that work with Ally and Care Time, we see that the most successful businesses do have trusted advisors they work with day to day to really make those great decisions. So maybe looking a little bit past the state of the economy, what other things do you
Yep.
think are important for the agencies this year, Steve?
I mean, we just switched the slide up to this next one here, our next like cue here. And the thing to talk about is, how can we generate patient leads? Because when I look at like growing a business, it's 2024, whether you look at like one thing, let me backtrack here. So the industry rate of growth, as per the Home Care Pulse report, right? They show a trend over the last 4 years that the total average agency that participate has grown their revenue by about 6%, 6.5% during that 4-year span, which when you add it up and you divide, 6% divided by 4 years, it's a little bit over 1.2, 1.5, 1.6% every single year. So that's not exciting growth year to year. How can I grow my business 10%, 20%, 30%? How can I get that kind of growth year after year? And so it kind of comes into like different aspects of the business. We have our office staff, and when do we bring on more help? We have our patients, and how do we bring on more patients and get more patients? And then we have our caregivers, and how do we bring on more of them and keep the ones that are working for us to continue working for us, right? Because that's the 3 parts of our business here. So from the patient lead standpoint, I had the privilege last year of being able to go marketing with several of my clients' business development professionals throughout the course of the year. And I can tell you firsthand, the stuff that I taught since 2012, it still applies. The thing that's really unique, all the referral sources that we've been going to, hospitals, rehabilitation centers, assisted living, skilled nursing, right? All of these different places that we go to get business, over the last 3, 4 years, they've experienced so much turnover that If you walk into an assisted living, chances are there's a brand new, and I say brand new, meaning sometime in the last 6 months, maybe a year, business development professional who did not work in this industry before the pandemic. So they don't have the strategic partnerships. They don't have the relationships that many people had before the pandemic. So this is a golden, and I mean, Julio, this is a golden opportunity for any agency out there. All the referral sources aren't used to working with agencies. So now we have to get in there. But how do we go about doing it? It's all about forming a true strategic partner, or as you know, I like to call them, Julio, power partners. Because if I can bring a partnership together and talk about, hey, I can do this. I'm looking to do this with somebody and we work together, that business is going to start referring me or every single day they possibly can because we're working together to grow our businesses.
It's interesting you say that. I found that as a company who also performs marketing, right? And many of our clients, they ask us over and over again, what are our ideas in marketing? How do they go out and how do they grow and find their business? And what kind of growth have we seen from some of our clients? Because we have clients, like you said, that have grown 30, 40. I even had one who doubled their business in a year, right? And what were they
Nice.
doing different from the one that has the same amount of census that they had last year this time? We talk to those people every day. And um, we hear a lot of people say, well, I spend my money on digital marketing, I spend my money on SEO, I spend my money on this. But what I heard you say something in three different ways was it was about relationships. Tell me more about that.
So when it comes to building relationships, that's everything. I mean, it was actually funny you mentioned with the technology. I was talking to somebody 2 or 3 hours ago about artificial intelligence. And I said, you know what I love about artificial intelligence is another form of intelligence. It's not flawless, it's full of mistakes, and you still got to learn to work with it just like it has to do with human intelligence, right? So um, but my whole point about the relationships is understand what is the common bond here. So, for example, a skilled nursing home, which is a great referral source if it's well qualified. If I'm speaking to an admissions coordinator who is essentially the marketing professional because it's their job to grow the census for that building, and I talk to them about doing initiatives that will grow their business and mine together. A lot of times they'll think, well, what's in it for you, Steve? Why would you want to do these initiatives with me? My response is always, well, as a strategic partner, I expect you to refer me business. So if I'm going to work with you and I want to do these collaborations with you, I want to help you grow your patient census so that you have more discharges. And those discharges, when they need help, I want you and I expect you as a partner to send those referrals home with me. And when you say this, the person on the other side of the desk, and I did this many times last year. It's they have this look on their face of like, that makes so much sense. Yes, we want to form a partnership. What did you have in mind? And then it goes further, and we walk around their building, and I tour, and I learn about the space they have, and we talk about collaborating on an event, and getting a speaker, and menu, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But it all starts with this idea of, I want to work with you. I want you to refer me, and I'm willing to help you grow your business so that you can refer me more. Right. And that's that concept of, what's in it together. We have synergy. It was John Kennedy who said one of my favorite quotes of all time. And he said, it's the rising tide lifts all boats. So a skilled nursing home, that's a boat. An assisted living, that's a boat. My home care agency, that's a boat. The rising tide, we all lift together.
So in your opinion, there's no substitute for that personal touch, that one-on-one, face-to-face. Let's figure out together as two human beings how I can help you, you can help me, and we move forward and we able to grow together. And what, in your opinion, would be a good measure of success for that, for an up and coming agency when it comes to, how many relationships do they need to build, or what percentage of growth should they shoot for that's realistic? If I don't know anything about this business and I'm in it for first year and I say, Steve, how do I know I'm successful? If I grow this much next year, what does that look like for me? Or what do you think that should be?
Ooh. Julio, that is a fantastic question. I don't get asked that question often. So I would say somebody in their first year, it's a stretch. but it's been done, and I know it can be done with the right resources, the right tools at their disposal. Somebody first year just opened their door, say they got their license and they're ready to accept patients December 31st of 2023. That first year, you can do $1 million. You
That's
can do $1
amazing.
million. I've seen it done. I've had many people do it. It's not easy. That's a stretch goal, but I've seen enough people to do it to know that it can be done. You know, $1 million, when you think about it, the smartest way to look at it is if you can get 20 patients on your census to average 40 hours a week per patient, that's going to generate about $1 million in revenue. It really, the numbers work out every single time. You take your hourly rate, you multiply it out, 40 hours a week, 20 patients, you're going to be billing out just around $20,000 a week. And if you're billing out $20,000 a week for 52 weeks, that's $1 million.
That's amazing growth for somebody doing it new, and it sounds extremely achievable if you really think about it. You just got to go in and put in the work and do the visits and the opportunities and phone calls and make the decisions. And that, that's an interesting point. That kind of leads me to think a little bit about one of the other subjects we were talking about today, and is, how do I know where to go find these clients, and how these clients pay for business? And am I limited as a new agency to just taking people who have enough money in their bank account to pay for the services? What are their options as a new agency, or maybe as a newly experienced agency who hasn't spent 4 or 5 years or 10 years in the business? How do I figure out what payer sources to pick up? How do I find the payer sources that are right for me, or what's right in my area? It seems like it's a lot of moving pieces, and I don't think we always help people understand the right moves to make in that arena.
Yeah. Just real quick to the other question too. For anybody who's been around for a while, I would say that industry rate of growth is 1%. Yeah, I think that everybody should grow their business at least 10% from what they did last year to this year. And a stretch goal for people who've been around for a while who have multi-million-dollar businesses, a stretch goal would be 33%. Just throwing that out there. As
33%.
far as Yeah, I think that I've seen enough people do that consistently where, they had a $4 million business and then all of a sudden they do, 5.5 in the next year. That's 33%. So I've seen enough people do that to know that it can be done. You just got to plan for it, work your plan your work. But to
Do
the
you
point
teach
of
folks?
different, whoops, sorry.
I was just curious, since we're on that subject for a second, when you're teaching, when you're talking to folks about that kind of growth, do you also help them understand kind of the staffing levels they got to carry for that kind of growth?
Yes, definitely. Definitely, because you got to, in order to get the growth, you have to. It's like I said. There's at the beginning here. There's three different parts of our business. We have our caregivers, our patients, and then our office staff. Part of growing the business. If you have a $4 million business and you're going to get to $6 million, that's a 50% growth, right? So if you're going to grow your business by 50% to do those kind of numbers, your staff is going to be very different than it was when you did $4 million. The volume of patients is going to be very different. The volume of caregivers working for you is going to be very different. The recruitment effort is going to be different than it was when you did $4 million. So you have to plan all of it accordingly. Take a look at your metrics. This is what I did last week with the Elite Academy in Bermuda. And I'm actually have another meeting of the Elite Academy next week because there's like 50 members in the Elite Academy now. The group has grown so much. It's insane, but I love it. But the Elite Academy next week, we're going to do the same thing where I help them reverse engineer. Last year, 2024, we brought in 100 caregivers. Well, the 100 caregivers who worked for us in 2024, that came from 200 interviews. And those 200 interviews came from 400 applications. So if I want to grow by 25%, I need 500 applications and 250 interviews for 125 caregivers. That's 25% additional caregivers. And then what am I doing that's working? And you got to look at your KPIs and your numbers from last year and determine what was working last year. And then what was I doing for recruiting and retention that didn't work last year? All right, this worked. Maybe put some more money into it or leave the budget the same for what worked. What didn't work, I'm going to allocate it into something else. And this is where I always talk about bringing in to get different results. You got to do something different, right? So you look at what is something that I've always wanted to try for recruiting, retention that I've never tried before, outside the box thinking, training. bringing in a different recruiter or an additional recruiter, boots on the ground marketing for caregivers. There's so many different things you can do. So the resources that didn't work last year, take that money, those resources, and allocate it into something that we didn't do last year to hopefully spark the 25% that we did not have last year. That's how I always teach my clients to do that.
That's really well said. And I love the fact that you talked about KPIs, right? That you should treat your business as stepping it up and slicing off little bites of the things you need to do. And as long as you do these activities, you're eventually going to get to the result you want. You know, I'm reading a great book about that called Atomic Habits recently that I just think is fantastic. It
What
talks
was
about
that book?
Atomic Habits. It's a
Atomic Habits.
great
I
book.
heard so many amazing things about that book. I have to check it out.
It is a fantastic book, but it talks about making small changes and doing little things. So if you're going to do one phone call today to chase a new client or to chase a new recruit, maybe make 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and the more you add to it. So it's really great that you teach that. And what we've learned with our clients is that the ones that are successful, you leverage whatever technology they're using, not to make a shameless plug for my technology, but they do leverage what they're using on top of the people that they're using to get the most amount of efficiency so they can do that growth in a way that doesn't hit their cash flow too hard, right? Because that's something they always have to keep in mind.
Yeah. On those KPIs, my favorite KPI that I go over with the Elite Academy members in great detail is what is the turnover ratio? And I know we're kind of jumping around here, like I think we're talking about recruiting, right? So I'll jump to this. We'll go back though. We'll go back. We got all these questions up, so I'll put the questions up. But it's more about what we're discussing here. But to that point, I always tell my clients to take a look at your turnover rate because when it comes to recruiting, there's so many different recruiting sources out there, right? You have Indeed, and you have Career Plug, and then you have My CNA Jobs, you have your word of mouth, you have your website and your SEO, you have your Google AdWords, and it goes social media. It just goes on and on and on, all the different ways that you recruit. If you have one source that's working, when you're looking at your KPIs, those metrics that you're mentioning that your software provides, you can look at and see, all right, well, I brought on 100 caregivers last year, and 40 of them came from this one source. But then when you look at the turnover ratio, it could be that this one source that brought in 40 caregivers also had the highest turnover rate, where out of those 40 caregivers, I only have 4 still working for me, and 90% of them have left. And so then it's like, is that really a good referral source for me to continue to spend resources in if the turnover is so high? Whereas on the flip side, this is something I actually go over in detail at the boot camp, the one that's coming up, the Evolution boot camp. I actually go over this whole formula with everybody where I break down the numbers. And it's like, this source over here, say referral bonus program, right? This one right over here may cost me more to get one caregiver than Indeed does. But if I get the same 40 caregivers from this, even though it costs me twice as much as one caregiver from Indeed, but a year later, out of those 40 caregivers, I still have 10 caregivers working for me, which isn't great, but 10 is a lot better out of 40 than 4, right? That's a 75% turnover, but it's a 25% retention. That's better. What if this source over here only has a 50% turnover? Meaning if I hired 40 caregivers from this one source, a year later, I still have 20 of those caregivers working for me. That's an efficient source. That's a source that I might say, you know what, let's put some more money into that, because even though it may cost me more to get a caregiver, the caregivers that come from this source last. That's how you build a stable business. That's how you can take care of more medically complicated patients, which kind of goes to what we said before about patient leads, right? How do I grow my business, and how do I grow it profitable? How do I grow it? We talked about many of my clients going from $4 million to $6 million at the Elite Academy last week, right? How did they do that? Well, if you're taking care of 100 patients and your average patient is getting 20 hours a week of services, that's 2,000 hours a week that you're billing out. You take the same 100 patients, but they're a sicker population, same 100 people, but now they're getting 40 hours of services every single week because they need more help. That's 4,000 hours. Same amount of staff, because it's still 100 people. It takes the same amount of staff to manage 100 people, whether they're 20 hours a week or 40 hours a week. but one business is generating twice as much revenue, that is significantly more profitable. That's how you stagger it. That's how you scale and grow. But to take care of sicker patients, you're going to need caregivers that know what they're doing because these are medically complex patients. And in order to know the caregivers that know what they're doing, that means you have to retain your caregivers. So the referral source that leads to long-term caregivers, in my eyes and what my clients' eyes, what they're experiencing, it's the ones that they can keep the caregivers working with them the longest, that they build the relationship, that they know the limitations of their staff, and that allows them to take on sicker patients, which bring in higher volume of hours every single week. I said a mouthful there, Julio, but there you go.
It's interesting, right? Because caregivers have a power today, let's be real, that they never had before, right? In an economy like we're talking about right now, and let's sit in the subject for a minute, because when my folks ask people, what is your number one pain point in an agency today? Top one or two every single conversation is, how do I retain my caregivers? How do I give my caregivers a better quality of life? I can't always pay them as much as I think they should be paid, or as much as they think they should be paid for the work that they're doing. We can all agree that's probably less than it could be. But how can I, there's so many ways to give people value that isn't always how much money they're making per hour. As a matter of fact, I've read plenty of studies, they've shown that most people would trade a raise for a better standard or better quality of life at work in a heartbeat. Right? Is that something that you think you see when you're out there talking to these agencies that are troubled, and you walk in and you're like, okay, here's how I can help?
100%. I mean, quality of life is everything at the end of the day. You can't take money with you. No matter, everybody listening to this webinar here, you may think, oh, if I just made $10,000 more last year, that would make a world of difference, until you make the $10,000 more, and then it's not enough. Right. So no matter how much you make, it's never enough. No matter, what you're doing and to make an income, you always need more. So if that's the case, your happiness, your peace of mind, your quality of life is more important and more. You can't put a dollar amount on that. Not to sound cliche, but one of my own, to your point, Julio, one of my staff members I recently hired, who's a part timer. When she came to work for me, she actually asked and had a salary requirement higher than I was budgeting to pay for the position. So when I offered her the position and I told her, listen, this is what I can pay you, she asked me if I could do more. And I said, no. And she goes, you know what? I really want to work for you. 2-3 weeks later, she wrote me a long email this morning telling me that this was the best decision that she had made. She's so thrilled that she made the decision to come here because she was miserable in her last job. The energy in the office, everybody's so positive, so supportive, so helpful, this and that she's getting all this training. She never worked at a company where she had training. We're reading books. You were talking about Atomic Habits. We're currently reading The Energy Bus, which is all about mindset and letting your mindset dictate how things go. And, I could have a bad day or I can have a great day. Same set of circumstances that happened to me in that day. I can't control that, but I can control how I respond to it. Right. And that's the energy bus. And she's just thanking me left and right. And this is the best decision she ever made. And she's making less money than she was at her last job, but she's happy. Right. So peace of mind, quality of life is everything. And for our caregivers, to this whole point that we're talking about, how do we keep our caregivers? It's giving them steady work. The inconsistency of hours, like when I look at, to your point, Julio, when people come to me and I help them grow their business, or they come to the boot camp, they want to scale their business, I bring the unstable 12 hours here, 8 hours there, 16 hours here, 20 hours here. I bring all that instability, which makes it very hard to give a caregiver a work-life balance where they got 40 hours and it's the same schedule week in and out. It's very hard to do that. I change it to helping them find these high need patients where the caregiver is going to get one patient, and that one patient is 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, because the person needs a lot of help. Or it's a patient that's getting 84 hours a week, where it's one caregiver at 12 hours a day, one does 4 days and one does 3 days. That's 36 hours for one and 44 hours for the other. That's 84 hours a week. And that patient stays on services indefinitely. Indefinitely is 6 months, 18 months, 4 years, who knows, right? Because it's a high need patient. When you build your business around these type of patients, it makes it a lot easier to give the true work-life balance. Your caregivers know I don't need to go look for another job because I didn't lose this one client out of the 5 that I'm carrying. No, I got this one client. And with most of us have a 3-day or a 7-day cancellation period. So if a client wants to discontinue services, as long as they don't pass away or something, a client wants to discontinue services today, Wednesday, they give me a week's notice. That means the agency, you have a week to find another case at these hours to reassign your caregiver to another case. Again, going back to what you said at the beginning, Julio, relationship, employer, employee as caregivers, that's the relationship that builds trust. People stay loyal to you and you scale your business quickly.
That type of load balancing that you're doing, right, with the caregivers and making sure that everybody has equitable jobs, something we actually do here. And it's interesting. I tell people all the time that when you are planning your resources, whether it's how many billers you have on a day-to-day basis and how many schedulers you need on a basis, you have to take that same kind of eye of thought to caregivers. And I think too often we see agencies that might have 200 caregivers for 50 clients, but you don't need that. If you do it right, you can do 50 caregivers with 50 clients. I think that's what I'm hearing you say, is that kind of planning can really mitigate the amount of resources you put to make the same amount of income. And not only that, I heard you say that there's so many non-compensatory ways for agencies who have tight cash flow, right? As we all are probably in our first couple of years. So really, really great information there. And is this the kind of stuff that you cover both in boot camp and the what was the name of the Bermuda trip? Because I'm going to have to go to that one.
Yeah, that's the elite. The elite academy is for like a select group. You got to be with me for a while. The reason why I say that is because I've had people try to join the elite academy without going through the other stuff, and then when they're at the meetings, they're discussing things that the other members are already aware of. So that's why I like people to work with me for a little bit, get the business going, hurricane style, and then they can invite to come to the Elite Academy. But yeah, to the boot camps, absolutely. The boot camp that's coming up, as a matter of fact, it's all facets of the business. So we're going to be talking, you're going to be speaking at it as well. We're all speaking on scaling the overall business. So it's an owner-focused event. We're going to talk about finances and improving the profitability. We're going to talk about sales and marketing, bringing in more of these nerd-type customers. We're going to talk about recruiting and the KPIs that we have to do and the things that we can do outside the box to bring in additional caregivers. And then we're going to talk about the operation itself and the operational metrics that we can do and the systems. Everybody talks about systems and processes. What are the best systems and processes, technology, know-how, everything, so that we can make the business more efficient? Because there's so many moving parts of this industry and this business, we have to make sure that we're optimizing all these areas, and that's the focus of the boot camp for those 3 days.
I love that. I love that. And as we roll into some, we have a few more minutes of time here. When you're talking about we started the conversation with talking about what's coming in 2024. We've shared a lot of good information, heard some really great things from you on things that we can tangibly do to improve our over operational excellence. But if I don't know what's going to happen, I've been running 20 employees and from administrators, and I've got 50 caregivers out in the field, and I'm sitting here looking at 2024, and I know I don't know what's going to happen, but how can I prepare myself for the things that I don't even know I'm preparing for?
So right, the unforeseen stuff. So this is something that when you and I were preparing for this was a question I'm glad that we brought up, because we don't know what's going to happen in 2024. We used to have a lot of stability in things, and the last 4 years have brought about the end of a pandemic. There's wars all over the world right now. You think back to 2020, and then when everything had shut down, then there was the thing that happened in Minnesota, with racial riots and people marching and protesting. And then we had a general election. Then we had January 6th, and all this stuff happened. And I remember as an employer going through all of this, and we still grew. But I remember, like, January 6th was the one that really stands out to me. I remember that day because I remember everybody in my office was freaking out. And I said, everybody, you know what, let's just go home, because it was the end of the day. And we all came back the next morning. When I walked in, everyone's like kind of like saying, like they didn't know what to think. And I said, we're going to have a meeting. I said, give everybody 15 minutes, get settled in. And then we all came in a conference room, and I said, let's just talk about what happened. Whatever, open forum. There's no right, there's no wrong. I don't care what your political, I don't care. Just whatever it is, and this is judgment free, no judgment. And we talked as a group, the six of us, right? And we talked about it, and some people said this and some people said that, but we had this forum where we were able to communicate and get through it together. And everybody said their piece and asked their questions. And we all were basically like, all right, so no matter what happens, we're going to get through this together. And that's the way that I've always run my business. That's the way that I help my clients run. Here I'm talking about the George Floyd was the thing that had happened, right? When the cop had killed him, right? And I had a client who, this is 2020, George Floyd, gets killed by this cop in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they are in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The riots and everything that took place a mile from their office. And I remember calling them, and I'm like, "How are you guys doing?" And I'm actually remember I told you I'm meeting them later on tonight. Those are my business partners, right, for my investment business that I have on the side. And I remember calling them, and they were like, "Steve, like this is crazy." I'm like, "But I'm here for you. Let's talk this through." Just the sound of it, just I don't know what you're going through. I can't physically help you, but just get it out, get it off your chest, And then she was saying how they were driving caregivers home because caregivers were afraid to go home because of what was happening and picking caregivers up. But the company got through it because the leadership got through it. So we don't know what's going to happen. In a perfect world, I'm a man of God, right? I'm a man of God, and Jesus is my Lord and Savior. God is good. So in a perfect world, this is going to be a great year, and nothing crazy is going to happen. But in the event that something crazy does happen, it's not that we can be prepared for it. It's how we handle it. If we lose our minds, if we lose control, our staff is going to lose their minds. Our staff is going to lose control. If we come clear-headed, all right, how big is this? And how much does this affect me and us? And I can keep it together, and then we can have this sounding board. That's a great thing. And that's just on the global side of it. We can talk in a minute about personally, but what's your thoughts on that, what I was saying there?
So I think crisis management and leadership is incredibly important. And I've learned a lot. I told you earlier when we were talking today, I learned a lot about leadership at your boot camp. Not to shamelessly plug your boot camp, but I did. I learned an amazing amount of leadership. It wasn't what I thought I was going to learn when I went to that event, right? It was very different, and it told me that the things that I run into in running my business, or the things that my people run into to help me run the business, is that if you don't understand that your job as a leader is to just give people something to trust, to follow, and to just settle down, I think you're missing that boat. And it sounds to me like it's something that anybody, you don't need a degree to be a good leader, right, Steve? You really don't need experience.
I don't have a degree.
Yeah, you don't need experience to be a good leader. It sounds to me like anybody who had the gumption to open up a home care agency and make that decision and take that chance and make that commitment to grow a business. I mean, you're a leader. Just making that decision made you a leader. And I think if you were to tell them, hey, here's some of the things you can do to help make yourself a good leader, Steve, what would those things be? If there were things you could point to.
So when it comes to being a good leader, I think it's two parts. The first part of it is making sure that you have a good vision and all your ducks in a row, right? So like thinking back to the Elite Academy last week, and the whole reason why I formed the Elite Academy is to help build these leaders, these entrepreneurs, into more successful entrepreneurs. And when I help them to do that, I help them to do it through better managing themselves and better managing their own time. Something that I said at the boot camp that you might remember, and I'll tell everybody here right now, write this down. Write down 168, right? Because there's 168 hours in every single week. Now you take that 168, write down underneath it minus 56. Let's block off out of that 168 hours, 56 hours for sleep. That's 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? Not that we're all going to get it, but let's just block it off. That leaves you with 112 hours. And then the next thing I tell everybody to do, and I'll say this here, is write down, Steve gives me permission, right? And that's the key part. Steve gives me permission, because otherwise you'll tell me you can't do it. So that's why I say it this way. Steve gives me permission to spend just 10% of this 112 hours on myself. for me, not me and my kids, not me and my spouse, not me and the church or whatever, 10%. And so 10% of 112 is about 12 hours. So that's about 90 minutes a day for you, for yourself. Read that book, go for that walk, take that fitness cycling class, climb that mountain, go for that swim, get some fresh air, meditation, yoga. I don't care what, it's your time, not on this, off of this, right? And just spend that 12 hours. Because when you take 12 hours from 112, how many hours are left? 100 hours. That's for everything else that you do. And so that's where then I say for that 100 hours to really be fulfilled, spend 30%, which is 30 of that 100 hours with your family and your friends and your church and all the people that you love, because that reminds you of why you do what you do. And then the next 30 hours, that's all the stuff that you have to do. You got to do your laundry. You got to cut the grass. You got to take out the trash. You got to do the dishes. You got to pay your bills. You got 30 hours for that. And then that leaves you with 40 hours of the highest quality productivity because you're fulfilled. You know, they always say, you're saying pay yourself first. So in this case, pay yourself your time first, and then spend your time doing the things that fulfill you the most. So that when you get into your business, you can handle a caregiver calling out. You can handle a staff member whose dog threw up last night and she had to call out of work today. Like all this stuff, you can handle it because you got your ducks in a row. That's my best advice for any leader. That's how I develop leaders, is help them to get their themselves so that they're fulfilled, and then they can handle anything their business throws at them.
Really great, tangible, specific advice on how to manage your time. I have not heard it put that way before. I'm going to give that a try and do the math and see how much I have left over. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Steve. You want to give some stuff away? You want to do that?
Yeah, man, let's get some stuff away. So
Let's
it's like
do it.
everything. So I see a bunch of questions in here, which is great. So after we're all finished, we'll address your questions in here. If there's some other folks who have some questions, you can go ahead and type the questions in here. I have a hard stop in like 8 minutes, so because then I got to get out the door. So let's go ahead and give away some giveaways. So the first giveaway I have, everybody here, make sure you write this down here. The first giveaway I have is a rapid results kit. This rapid results kit right here is great for any brand new business owner. It's great for anybody who's been in business for a while and they're struggling. Inside this kit is a $3 million business plan. Inside this kit is how to create those power partners I was talking about, how to close high paying customers. Oh, a lot of people I see want it. All right, this is good. You also get a free ticket to come to this boot camp in here. So there's a whole, this is like a $2,500 package that we sell for $997 on our website. So the person who's going to win it, what I want you to do, I'm going to write a number down on this sheet of paper here. Everybody see this sheet of paper? I'm going to write a number down on it, 1 through 10. What number did I write down on this paper? Type it where it says questions. Okay. Whoa, a lot of people are typing it in there. All right. So I'm going to show you the number. All right. And so whoever guessed it, the first person who guessed the number two is the winner. And so let me see. First person who put 2 was Indy Tour. Indy Tour. So Indy Tour, Toor. I want you to write an email, say that I won the rapid results, and put your name in it so we know it's you. So make sure it's coming from you, Indy. The email is info, INFO, at homecareevolution.com. Info at homecareevolution.com. Indy, write us your contact information. We'll respond to it. We'll get this sent out to you right away, my friend. Congratulations, Indy. All right. And let's give away a computer.
Yes, let's give away a brand new Chrome laptop. Unfortunately, I don't have it as fancy as Steve did, so I don't have it in my hand where I could show you the box with the laptop, but it is there and it'll come straight to your house once you win that free gift. So, Steve, give us a number.
You want a number? All right, ready. Type your number in here. I'm going to write a different number down. What's the number going to be? This is so good. Like it's just like, you know, because we have over 100 people here live with us. So this is fantastic. So the first person to guess the right number first, here is the right number. 8.
Number 8.
And this winner is Shay Rogers. Shay
Shay
Rogers,
Rogers,
you were the
congratulations.
first person. And now, Julio, how should Shay contact you? What do you want Shay to
I
do?
think if she will send an email with her name and contact information to info to your email address, and
Okay,
you can get
same
that to
one.
me. The same one.
Okay,
It's the
well,
one of this meeting. Send it over there, and we will be happy to get that laptop out to you tomorrow.
all right, so you hear that, Shay? So Shay, you want to write down info@homecareevolution.com, say that you won the laptop. Make sure you put your name in it so we know it's you and your contact info, and then we'll head it over to Julio, and Julio will reach out to you and we'll get that to you right away. So this is fantastic. So Julio, I'm just checking real quick. We got some questions that had come in. Spitfire. So how do you help the businesses grow? I think we kind of answered that. I mean, so from your perspective, Julio, what do you do to help businesses grow?
So I think what we're a technology partner, right? So what we do is we provide not only the software platform which you're going to use to manage both your onboarding, your scheduling, your billing, your claims. We even have some tools around referral management that Steve has been talking about today and tracking your marketing needs as well as caregiver and onboarding stuff. But I think that's what we do, right? But who are we? Who we are is we want someone that's going to really help your agency grow. Successful agencies become successful longtime partners of Ally and Care Time. Everybody in my company, including myself, has a personal story around this business, and we are here to help you grow your business as much as you can. And if I'm not the best platform to help you get there, we're going to be the first ones to tell you that. But more than anything else, we encourage you guys to really take advantage of your business. Think about it, follow the advice you get from Steve as his team, because this is a fantastic business. And this year is going to be, despite whatever challenges are coming, and I'm not going to tell you what they are because I don't know them, is going to be a fantastic year to make money in this business and really help people, which is what we're here to do at the end of the day.
Absolutely love it. And for me, come to the boot camp. That's the best advice I can give you because we're going to teach you to scale all of it. Another quick question that came in was about MCOs. My state is no longer accepting MCO providers. So what can I do if I'm a new business? I would say, Christopher, go out and develop private pay. So you have a home care agency. You do not have to rely on Medicaid. This is the reason why I have I have a lot of clients who have Medicaid businesses, but this is why I always recommend that if anybody has a Medicaid business, you want to grow the Medicaid evenly with the private pay, where if you have a $5 million business, 2.5 million of the revenue is Medicaid and 2.5 million is private pay, because when the government says they're not allowing anybody else in, that's it. When the government says we're not giving you any more money, that's it. Your business is dictated to you by the government. From private pay, you control it. So I would recommend going out in a boot camp, right? Get the training, but go out, develop referrals, to bring in private pay. Somebody had asked about the right payer sources. This is something that I would say for payer sources. There's multiple payer sources out there. I will say that the VA has become good,
VA.
depending on the state. Some states the reimbursement isn't good. Some states the reimbursement is good. So check on the reimbursement from the state that you're in. I'd also recommend, you heard me talk about Medicaid. If you have a Medicaid business, get it 50-50 with the private pay so that this way you're not 100% reliant on one payer source. And then the last thing is a lot of folks overlook long-term care insurance. And I
We
think
love
that that's a mistake. I like doing assignment of benefits. And with assignment of benefits, the insurance company will pay you directly. So this way you'll get more patients to come to you. Most agencies out there have the patient pay you and then they get reimbursed. I find if you're willing to accept direct from the assignment of benefits from the insurance company and get paid from them, you're going to grow that census much faster. And people who have policies will flock to you because you accept that payer source. Is there anything you want to add to that, Julio, on the payer source?
So I think that's interesting. It's such a big subject. I don't know that we can get into it as much, but I love what you said about long-term care insurance. My most successful clients, I know I've said that a few times, but we do see hundreds of agencies operate businesses. Long-term care insurance is huge. Not enough people are applying for it. Steve's right on point with assignment of benefit. It does require some money management because you're floating a little bit while you're waiting for the reimbursement if you're doing that sort of thing. But look, if you can conquer that sort of the more complex spaces, not just the sending out an invoice and getting paid by credit card, you're going to be a step ahead of everybody else. VA, as a veteran myself, I could not recommend VA more. It's not always available in all areas. Sometimes they fill up of the number of providers they're going to allow. But look, the reimbursement rates per hour they're 2 or 3 times what Medicaid is sometimes. I mean, it's really high. So Steve, I would personally sit in another payer seminar for you for sure, just to learn more.
Dude, I love it. The last question I have here is a kind of a two-parter on the recruiting, and just because we're at the end of the time here, I'll answer it real quickly here. And it basically just says, what are your thoughts on the breakdown of caregiver pay to retain quality employees? Could you provide some examples? If you're not recommending give somebody a raise or more money. And what I've always talked with the Elite Academy, we talked about this last week, obviously a raise is one way that you can recognize somebody. Another way that you can recognize people is more PTO. Caregivers want time off. Caregivers need time off. And if you're giving people PTO and not like what most agencies do. Most agencies, you work for 3 months, you get a day or 2 days or whatever, unless you're in a state where it's required for you to give more. Give people real PTO. Like, I'm an adult. I'm a 43-year-old man. I would not work any job that gave me less than 4 weeks PTO. And that's me. And granted, that's my salary and income and everything else, whatever. But like, give people real time off. So if you have somebody who's a superstar caregiver and you can't afford to give her a raise, but she's never had more than 5 days off in a year, elevate her to 15 days. Like, yeah, so she doesn't work 50, she gets 15 days off. That's 3 weeks paid vacation. Like, that's huge. And that's something that can show appreciation. That retains staff. I think always about my executive director, Nicole Peretti, who works for me for 11 years now. She came with me in 2013. And at one point, I wanted to give Nicole a raise because she was doing amazing in my company, but my company wasn't where it needed to be. So I couldn't afford to give Nicole a raise. I said, Nicole, what can I do for you? I want to do something for you because you're doing a great job. She goes, can I have more time off? Because she only had 2 weeks, and I doubled it. I gave her 4 weeks off. So instead of giving her a raise, I gave her more time off, to which she used, and she was even that much more productive because she was happy at the job. So there's always different things we can do besides physical monetary compensation. Appreciation goes a long way. Something very small. You, as the owner of your company, take a caregiver out for the caregiver of the month. You may think that I'm a nobody. Your caregivers, to them, you're the boss. So the boss wants to take them out for lunch. That's a big deal for them. It really is. And they appreciate it. And take them to a nice place. Don't take them to, some crappy restaurant. Take them to a nice restaurant and just treat them nice. So that's my take on that. Julio, anything you want to say in closing, my friend?
No, sir. This has been a great time. I can't, just a segue to what you were saying, you never go wrong with telling people how awesome they are. You just can never go wrong with that. And if you believe it, they believe it. If they believe it, they're happy. And everything good. You just cannot make a mistake by telling your employees how fantastic they are every day, every time you talk to them. Thank them. That's all I got, Steve. Great call.
What is if somebody's interested in your services, because I see a question here, how should they contact you? Best email address to reach out for support? Because somebody said, would you please share your email?
There's a lot of different ways you can reach us. You can reach us at allyms.com, www.allyms.com. There's contact forms on the site. We're also at www.caretime.net for both of our agency products, but you can always reach out to sales at allycaretime.com with an email, or you can reach out to my personal email. I'll give it to you guys right now. It's julio.barea@allycaretime.com. We're happy to put you in with one of our consultants to talk to you about your business.
Awesome. Julio, this was fun, my friend. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Pleasure's all mine. Thanks, guys. Bye.